Good evening and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin and I'm so happy to have you here for my March wrap up. This is my first wrap up video and I'm very excited to be coming here and bringing it to you because it's something that I've thought about doing for a while now. Since typically I listen to quite a few audiobooks in the month, I don't necessarily always have a beautiful stack of books to show that I read, and unfortunately, this month, all of the books that I read were books that I had either listened to via audiobook from my library or were books that I had and had to return to my library, and now the library shut up, so I don't have books to show you. So they're gonna pop up on the screen and we'll look at the covers that way. So let's delve into it. We're going to do this in chronological order because that's the easiest way for me to do it. I will let you know that every book on this list, with the exception of one book, has a dedicated review to it that I will link down below. They're on my YouTube channel and they are videos that I posted prior to my introductory video. So if you want to know my immediate thoughts post-read, that's where you want to go. The first book I read this month was The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This was a 5-star book and it was phenomenal. I cannot recommend it enough. In fact, because I read this book and loved it so much, it tempered some of the other books that I read that were in the similar vein and the reviews that they got. Briefly, this book is a slice of life novel. It covers one specific character, Cyril, his life, and all the people who are around him. And I just found it incredibly heartwarming, extremely sad. I laughed, I cried, and I had all the emotions. The next book I read this month was Every Heart a Doorway by Shawnee McGuire. Now this is book 1 in the We Were Children series. It was a series that I didn't think that I was going to read, or if I did read it, that I didn't think that I would necessarily enjoy. However, this book was phenomenal. I think that McGuire has a fabulous way of writing. The way that she uses her language is just really spectacular and enjoyable for a reader. On top of the fact that this particular book in the series has a mystery in it that I found highly enjoyable. I really enjoyed learning about the characters. I think that this book is a really great intro to the series. I enjoyed it so much that I actually read the next book in the series very shortly after. This book was a 5-star read for me. The next book that I read this month was Abaddon's Gate by James S.A. Corey. This is book 3 in the Expanse series, and I love this series with my whole sci-fi heart. I have been so entertained. Book 1 was great, book 2 was great, this is book 3. It is great. There are the core staple characters, and then there are these fabulous new characters that you get insight from, and I really think that Corey is a phenomenal writer, and this series is a treasure. If you are somebody who enjoys sci-fi and have not read the Expanse series, get on it. 5 out of 5. The next book was The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, which surprisingly I had never read before March of this year. I get why it is considered a modern classic. I did enjoy reading it. However, I found some of the subject matter really, really heavy and overtly depressing. Did that temper my reading? Kinda. Because I had read The Heart's Invisible Furies this month, and I found that fiction book did a really nice job of giving us everything that I think that The Kite Runner was trying to do, minus the Middle East conflict, I only gave The Kite Runner a 4 out of 5. That being said, if you check out my individual review for this, I talk about a couple other books that I have read that I read prior to The Kite Runner that I thought were also excellent if you're interested in that time period of Iraq history. The next book was Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Caroline Criado Perez. So this was a book that I saw on Emily Fox Books, who's one of my favorite YouTubers. I will tag her page down below if you're not familiar with her. She loves sci-fi and she makes me happy, brings me joy. She read it last month as well. She started it in February and she finished it this month, rather. She was reading a specific genre a week challenge, and this was one of the books that she picked up and she raved about it. And so I immediately had to check and see if my library had it, and they did. And this book was phenomenal. If you have any kind of feminist leanings, or if you are interested in the amount of information that is out there in regards to how things are done and how that information is biased in regards to the male population versus the female population, it blew my mind. I was angry. I was impressed with Criado Perez's dictation of the audiobook because she reads it and it's fabulous, as well as her research that she did for this. Wonderful. I gave it 4 stars. I believe I took a star off because I thought that it got a little technical in parts. Again, check out the itemized review for this one. You can find out what I really thought about it in the moment. Yes, I have a list. I'm old school. Come on. The next book I finished this month was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Loren. This was a book that I had found when I was looking for a book akin to City of Girls and or The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This was a book that popped up, and I'm actually really glad that I added it to my TBR because I loved it. I do not like romance. Romance novels are like close to the bane of my existence, but that's only because I find them incredibly cheesy and contrite, so I tend to not read them. However, this one, totally enjoyed, hit the spot. It was right book, right time. I think that there is more here than just a generic romance novel, so I recommend it a lot, and I gave it 5 stars. The next book I finished this month was The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. This was a book that I was interested in because I knew that it was loosely based on reality, and I was not disappointed with it. However, I think that the pacing and the way the story was written, which was not necessarily linear, it was kind of jumpy and in and out of various perspectives, took me out of the story in places. And unfortunately, in the places that it took me out of the story were really key moments, which is frustrating. So because of that, I gave it a 4 out of 5, but I still think that this book is powerful. I think that it is entertaining in a dark, based in reality kind of way. The next book I read was book 2 in the Wayward Children series, and that is Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna McGuire. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a horror junkie and I love classic horror. Dracula is my jam. I go in ham for some classic horror. So this book, whom I've heard many people say that they didn't like as much as the first one, exceeded expectations. I gave it a 5 out of 5 because I like the characters, I love the world, and I really think that a darker turn versus the first book that was already fairly dark to begin with was something that I needed. It's not probably going to be for everybody, but I love the Moors. The next book I read was Dear Fahrenheit 451, Love and Heartbreak in the Stacks by Annie Spence. Now, this is a nonfiction book that I was intrigued by because it is basically marketed as love letters or notes to the author's favorite books. I found, as a book lover and a reader of all genres, this book highly entertaining for the first 75%. I was laughing, I got a little teary-eyed at parts, and I was cheering along with Annie Spence, who is a librarian. However, the last probably 30 to 35% of the book is kind of ridiculous because all it is lists. Because of that, I only gave this a 3 out of 5. The next book I finished this month was Recursion by Blake Crouch. I gave it a 5-star review, which was huge considering Dark Matter for me was a 2-star read. Check out my dedicated review for more information and more thoughts on that one because it's confusing and my brain at this point in time cannot handle going into more detail. And the last book that I read this month is a book that I did not do a review for because I DNF'd it at 27%, and that is Light in August by William Faulkner. Now, my husband and I purchased a home this year in a really cute neighborhood where all the streets are named after famous authors. I just so happen to live on Faulkner Drive, adjacent to Salinger Drive, around the corner from Poe Drive, if you catch my drift. So I was feeling incredibly guilty having not read any William Faulkner. I know. What's wrong with me? Don't worry, I have others of his books on my bookshelf. And honestly, if you have a specific favorite of his, please comment down below and point me in a direction that you think that I might enjoy. Anyway, I put Light in August on my TBR and I got it from the library and I started it. Was really slow to begin with, but I was enjoying the characters, so I plowed through. Unfortunately, it didn't get any faster, and the characters that I thought were the main characters ended up being bit part not important really characters to the story. So then I went on Goodreads and I read a whole bunch of reviews. I read a whole bunch of 5-star reviews. Don't you worry, I did not read 1-star reviews in the hopes of tempering my feel for the book, but just to get a feel on what people were thinking and what they pulled away from the book. A lot of the stuff that people were saying was things that typically I would plow through to enjoy. However, this month is heavy enough, and most of the reviews said that this book is really sad. It stays pretty heavy, can quite frankly be overtly depressing, especially if you are wondering how racism post-slavery was handled in the South and the way people viewed individuals of mixed descent. Like I said, typically that is something that is right up my alley, but right now in the current climate, I just needed something that was a little more light and fuzzy. So I DNF'd it. Whether or not I return to it in the future, I don't know. That will probably depend on how I'm feeling or if I ever get the urge. I have all these unread books behind me, so maybe not. Since I'm gonna try other Faulkner novels, I don't feel too bad about DNFing a lesser known title of his in the hopes that something else will spark my fancy. All right, you guys. I hope you guys sincerely enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you agree with my ratings, if you disagree, if you wanna recommend a book because I liked a certain book, please let me know. As you can tell, most of my reading this month was excellent, 4-star, 5-star, a couple of 3. Because of that, that's why I set my reading my lowest rated books on my shelf challenge for myself in April, because this month was such a stellar reading month for me. Have a good night. I'll see y'all later.